The movie starts in Germany in 1944. A Yenish boy named Ernst Losse was sent to a mental institution overseen by Dr. Werner Feithausen. As Werner reviews Ernst's profile with his assistant, Dr. Paul Hechtle, they learn from previous institutions that Ernst is labeled a thief and a troublemaker. Ernst denies these accusations, and Werner, opting for a fresh start, assigns him to the manual labor group. Noticing scars on Ernst's back, Werner reassures him that physical punishment is not practiced in their institution. Hearing this, along with the news that he won't have to attend school, fills Ernst with a glimmer of hope. However, this hope quickly fades when he tours the facility and realizes it is populated with people who have special needs. Ernst protests that he doesn't belong there, but his pleas are ignored. Instead, he is taken for a full medical examination and has his head shaved. Afterward, Ernst is sent outside to begin manual labor. He encounters bullying from a teenage boy named Christoph, but manages to befriend other boys his age, including one named Hermann. That night, they sleep in a communal bedroom, and Ernst notices the doctors tying a boy named Oja to the bed due to his mental state. After the doctors leave, Hermann takes Ernst to a dormer on the roof, where they can climb out and watch the distant lights from British bombing raids. Meanwhile, Werner gives Paul the names of 3 boys to prepare for transfer. Paul protests, pointing out that Christoph is improving and their labor force will dwindle. However, Werner explains that these are orders from the Hadamar Euthanasia Center. The next morning, while doing his tasks, Ernst meets a sick child named Tony. Despite Tony's illness, they have a great time playing together, laughing, and enjoying themselves. Their fun is interrupted when Max Witt, the forensic assistant, approaches Ernst. Witt informs Ernst that from now on, he will be helping him with his tasks. As Witt delivers this news, he also tells Hermann that his parents have come to take him home. Excited and hopeful, Ernst watches the reunion through a window. Seeing Hermann's joyful embrace with his parents, Ernst tries to hold on to hope that his own father will come for him someday. On the way to the lab, Ernst sees Tony having an epileptic seizure. Sister Sophia quickly rushes to help Tony. With everyone distracted, Ernst takes the opportunity to explore the infirmary. As he looks around, he finds a girl named Amelie lying on her bed and humming for food. Ernst approaches Amelie and offers to feed her. Surprisingly, she allows him to do so, even though she usually only lets Sister Sophia feed her. Impressed by this, Sister Sophia agrees to let Ernst come every day to help with feeding Amelie. A few hours later, Witt finishes his dissection in the lab, and Ernst learns about his new responsibilities as Witt's assistant. His job is to clean the dissection table and tools. When Ernst sees a large amount of blood, his stomach churns, and he feels queasy. The next morning, a loud commotion breaks out in the bedroom. Christoph is trying desperately to escape from the doctors. He struggles and fights, but eventually, they catch him. Christoph is then taken and placed on a black bus. None of the patients, including Ernst, know that this bus is headed for a euthanasia center. Ernst's mood brightens when his father, Christian, comes to visit him. Christian promises Ernst that he will take him away so they can escape to the USA together. Christian then meets with Werner to discuss the necessary paperwork to take Ernst with him. However, Werner explains that without a permanent address, he cannot legally release Ernst to his father. Desperate and anxious, Christian pleads with Werner to make an exception. He explains that he was recently released from a concentration camp and now works as a street vendor. Despite Christian's heartfelt plea, Werner remains firm, insisting that Ernst will be safer staying at the facility rather than living on the streets with his father. Before leaving, Christian gives Ernst a heartfelt goodbye. He promises that he will return for him one day. As a symbol of his love and commitment, Christian gives Ernst his necklace as a gift. A few days later, Ernst sees that Paul has accidentally left his keys in a door. Seizing the opportunity, Ernst tries to steal one of the keys, but he is caught by Nandl. She warns him that he needs to be more careful and discreet if he wants to avoid getting into trouble. Werner calls Sophia and Paul into his office for an important announcement. He tells them that the Hadamar Euthanasia Center has been shut down. This means that their facility will be receiving more patients, which will result in extra work for everyone. After Sophia departs, Werner reveals to Paul that there's more to the plan. They will now be responsible for euthanizing the children themselves. Those willing to assist will receive extra pay each month, prompting Paul to agree. He's briefed on the procedure. Officially, the children will be reported as dying of bronchopneumonia, but in reality, they will be given a barbiturate, a nervous system depressant. To aid in this grim task, Werner hires Sister Kiefer as a new nurse. After the doctor examines all the children in the infirmary, he selects the next 3 names and passes them to Kiefer. She requests raspberry juice to mix with the barbiturate, which helps mask its bitter taste. The following day, Ernst enjoys playing outside with the other children, particularly bonding with Nandl and discovering they share similar tragic backgrounds, both orphaned, with Nandl at the hospital due to epilepsy. In a moment of levity, Ernst reads Nandl's palm, reassuring her with his interpretation. During evening duties, Ernst notices Sister Kiefer compelling Tony to consume a large amount of juice, raising his suspicions. Later, Werner assigns Paul 10 pages patients who are to be exclusively fed vegetable soup. The next day, tragedy strikes as Tony is found dead by Sophia and Ernst, prompting grief for their loss. Werner, feigning surprise, orders bronchopneumonia as the cause of death, while Witt proceeds with the necessary procedures. During the funeral, Ernst questions Witt about the inconsistency between the reported cause of death and Tony's recent vitality. The children are then sent to gather wood in the forest, but Ernst, still troubled, retreats from the group. Nandel confronts him for his perceived laziness, but their disagreement is interrupted by her epileptic seizure. Ernst supports her through the episode, earning her gratitude with a kiss on the cheek afterward. In the evening, Sophia confronts Werner privately, expressing her suspicions about Kiefer's actions. Werner acknowledges their involvement in the euthanasia program, justifying their selection of children deemed unlikely to recover. Sophia is horrified, leading Werner to accuse her of hypocrisy, citing her past involvement in the black bus operations. Meanwhile, Ernst leads Nandel to Herman's spot on the roof and shares insights into his people's culture. He explains that anyone can ask a Yenish person for one life wish, which they cannot refuse. Nandel ponders her wish and decides that skating again isn't significant enough. She resolves to think of a better wish later. The next day, Sophia visits the Archbishop to inform him about the situation at the mental institution. The Archbishop promises to contact Rome for help, but the current political climate makes it difficult. He asks Sophia to continue working there to provide inside information. As days pass, more children die and the cemetery fills up quickly with new graves. Werner monitors 10 patients who are only being fed soup, noting that they have all lost weight. Ernst continues to assist in the infirmary, feeding Amelie. One afternoon, he notices Paul has left the keys unattended again. Ernst seizes the opportunity to take one just before Kiefer arrives with special juice for Amelie. Amelie refuses the drink, so Ernst offers to feed her himself. As he approaches, he pretends to trip and spills the juice on the floor. Kiefer leaves to prepare more juice, and Sophia arrives, congratulating Ernst on his actions. When Kiefer returns, Ernst is cleaning the floor, and Amelie is missing. Kiefer doesn't believe Ernst's story that Amelie walked away, so she decides to give the juice to another child instead. After Kiefer leaves, Sophia rushes in and makes the child vomit. Werner appears with Kiefer and asks Sophia to come with him. She asks Ernst to finish cleaning the child and gives him a handkerchief with her room key hidden inside. Once they leave, Kiefer tells Ernst about finding a deer with broken legs in the forest. She wanted to care for it, but her father euthanized it, explaining that prolonging its suffering would be cruel. After Sophia and Werner leave, Ernst rushes to Sophia's room and finds Amelie on her bed. He picks her up and hides. Sophia returns with Werner and Kiefer, who search the room thoroughly, under the bed and inside the wardrobe, but can't find Amelie. Kiefer apologizes and leaves, while Werner tells Sophia that if she dislikes how things are handled, she should quit. Later, Sophia opens the window to let Ernst and Amelie back inside. Ernst, scared, hugs her. Paul is sent to search for Amelie first in the hospital and then around town. Werner leaves for a meeting with military officials. During dinner, Werner serves everyone a soup he's developed at the hospital. It tastes okay but lacks nutrients. With this soup, they can slowly starve patients without raising suspicion. His superiors approve and plan to implement this idea in all hospitals. Meanwhile, Ernst learns it's Nandel's birthday. At night, he sneaks out with her through the basement. They go to a nearby lake, and Ernst promises to take her ice skating on Lake Michigan one day. They leave when British bombs drop nearby. The next day, Werner orders Paul to feed only soup to those who can't work. Kiefer continues to use the juice, which causes one of Nandel's friends to die. Everyone sees the body taken from the girls' communal bedroom, and Oya has a breakdown. He cries and then attacks Paul when he approaches, calling him a killer. It takes several doctors to hold Oya down and sedate him. Later, Paul tells Werner that Oya keeps spitting out the juice. Werner approves injecting a barbiturate instead. Ernst and Nandel discuss the situation and decide they need to escape before they're next. During lunch, they sneak food and hide it in Nandel's bag. To divert attention, Ernst makes a scene about the fish served, causing others to copy him. Laughter is interrupted by an alarm signaling British bombings nearby. During an air raid, everyone rushes to the bunker except for Ernst and Nandel. They hide under a table and wait for the others to leave so they can escape. They make it to the basement where they find Sophia, still protecting Amelie. Sophia urges them to run, but as they reach the window, a bomb hits nearby, filling the room with dust and debris. Nandel is injured, and tragically, Sophia and Amelie die. The next day, during Sophia's funeral, Werner gives a speech honoring her contributions. After the ceremony, Werner tries to blame Ernst for what happened, but Ernst refuses to accept it. He insults Werner, calling him a liar and a murderer. Werner walks away in tears. That evening, Ernst visits Nandel, who gives him the provisions and asks him to leave without her. Ernst refuses to leave her behind. Nandel decides to use her life wish for this, and Ernst promises to escape after giving her his father's necklace. To leave, Ernst waits for everyone to go to bed so he can sneak out. He sits outside the infirmary, waiting for the corridors to empty. Meanwhile, Werner makes a new list of names to be euthanized, including Ernst. Paul protests, arguing that Ernst is healthy and a good worker, but Werner is adamant, criticizing Ernst for missing opportunities. Paul finds Ernst outside the infirmary and takes him to a bed, but he can't bring himself to kill a healthy child. Werner sends Kiefer for help. The next morning, Nandel sees a raven on her window and senses what has happened before receiving the news from Witt. Despite her injuries, Nandel goes to the mess hall and announces to everyone that Ernst has escaped to the USA. This news brings hope and joy to everyone, who celebrates by banging their plates and sending their food to the ceiling. The real Ernst was tragically killed on August 9, 1944. And with that, the movie ends. We hope you enjoyed our video. Watch the next recaps on the screen and don't forget to subscribe for more amazing recaps. See you in the next one.